What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 316. It is another fine Sunday, and we are here to talk about all of the amazing games that have been releasing and that we are playing. So I am your host, Ainsley Bowden, with the regular crew back with you, including the lawman himself, Ty Guy Travis. Take it over as the lawman this week.
What's up, boys? Just elected sheriff of San Francisco. You know, I am the law.
That could happen.
I walk down the roads and I just look into the saloons on the sides and kick open those double doors that swing both ways that all saloons have. It's good. It's a good time.
It's a requirement. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Wait, now, Travis, does every jurisdiction with a sheriff have to have double door saloons?
Yeah. If it doesn't,
that's actually in the books. You would know that if you were a lawman.
Yeah. Look, if you are a law enforcement official and your town does not have double door saloons, you're a cop.
Okay.
Yeah.
And some guy pretending to be a lawman is here as well. The Hogue himself, Mr. Hardcore Hogue. How we doing, my friend?
I am doing well, although I don't feel worthy of the name Hardcore Hogue since I've kind of dumped Diablo 4 to the side for right now.
How dare you?
Yeah, I know.
All our hopes and dreams were resting on you.
These bitches ain't loyal. I'm telling you guys.
Look, I can't explain why whatever they did this season or the way that they have been talking to the community has just ended my love of that particular product. But I hope it comes back at some point in the future because I really did love it for a long, long time.
Yeah, I think you stick with a game for a long period of time, the drop-off is inevitable. I think it's a little easier for people like Ains and I who kind of dropped off and then came back for it. And we're like, oh, this is fresh and new versus I've been playing for 4 seasons and the 5th season just didn't do it for me. But, you know,
yeah,
my experience with my live service games, like Destiny, like sometimes it's just like, I do not want to think about this game. And then you come back and you're like, oh, I see why it's like getting back together with an ex. You're like, okay.
Yeah, I believe it is.
You know, you can kind of see their better sides a little bit, you know.
Well, I really did love it, and I just really haven't felt like playing it this season. So it'll be back.
Plenty of other games.
Anyone here ever get back together with an ex, Ains?
We just started.
But I usually do an opening question that's totally out of left field. So let's see.
Yes, I have actually. Yes.
Nice, dude. Ains, you make such bad decisions. Hogue, how about you?
Yes, I do.
I have to tell you that Mrs. Hogue is really my first legitimately serious relationship. I had some dalliances in high school, but
completely predictable. Very cool. All right, so we got the two sides: bad decision maker and person who really had all their decisions made for them.
In my defense, I was still a teenager. We're not talking about in my 30s type thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Everybody makes that mistake early.
Yeah.
I, for my part, I don't think I've gotten back together with an ex, but I'm sure that's not for lack of trying. I'm sure it's a situation where they were like, no, nobody was able to make me as a mistake twice. You know what I mean? So
it's fair.
Totally makes sense. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for that.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
I just want to get to know you guys a little more. It's weird to talk to people and barely understand who they are as a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All I know is your video game opinions.
That's what our audience is here for. X talk. Yeah. You know. So today we're going to be talking about, as you saw on the thumbnail, Travis, I'm not jealous at all, got to go to Compulsion Games and check out South of Midnight for IGN. One of the bigger releases in 2025 for Xbox on their slate. So we're going to talk about that. He can finally kind of talk about it in detail. We also got the Indiana Jones deep dive this week. We can talk about that. And we got some interviews with Phil Spencer talking about kind of the state of Xbox. With Bloomberg, Rolling Stone, and others about handhelds, the Xbox app, the health of the business, multiple things. So we'll touch on all that. We, of course, have Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. It's finally out, so we can finally talk about that in depth. But still been playing a lot of Dragon Age, and there's a couple other things we'll touch on as well, including the Game Awards. So we're going to get into it. But, of course, we'll start off with a couple super chats out of the gate. If I can remember how this app platform works, bear with me. Googleman coming in fresh as always.
Googleman81 offers €10 and writes, "This week I got fired for not being a cultural fit for the first time. Shadow of Tomb Raider doesn't let you crouch. What the heck? Nitro Pepsi?" Googleman, I guess
we got to break these 3 things up.
Yeah, so the first one, I guess now he has to go by the username Bingman81. Go work for competition. Maybe.
Oof.
It's duck.
I prefer Firefox 82.
Well, that's not a search engine, right?
No, that's a browser. You are correct.
Yeah, so he's got to be, Bingman, or actually
DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo. Actually, you know what the second most popular search engine is? It's
AOL.
not Bing. It is actually YouTube, which is, also Google. That's where people search for things, especially the younger generation. They just skip the Google search bar and they go to YouTube and look for it because they want to see a video. So
and Google is happy either way.
Yeah, they're happy either way, dude. So
Google, sorry to hear that, man. I assume this is a serious comment, so apologies on that. I hope you obviously land on your feet and get something soon. I don't know if you just got fired while you're super chatting. Don't feel obligated. We can call you out at the beginning of the show. Shadow of the Tomb Raider doesn't let you crouch. I don't remember that. That sounds weird.
Shadow of the Tomb Raider feels like one of those games that auto crouches for you. Like you kind of are just permanently crouched. I feel like that's how Lara walks, right?
Permanently crouched.
She kind of just crouches around. I don't remember.
If there's a battle setting, yeah.
And
puts her hand on the box.
I've never heard of Nitro Pepsi. Any of you guys understand what this is?
I don't think I know Nitro.
I think Nitro. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Nitro Pepsi is the one that's the. Isn't that the coffee like caffeinated?
Oh, interesting.
One. I could be wrong.
What's funny is my first thought of Nitro Pepsi is that maybe it was the opposite of Pepsi Zero. Like instead of taking out all the good stuff, they just put more of the bad stuff in for the people who really are interested in dietary nihilism, also known as the Dans of the world. The Dan Rodriguez.
Dan doesn't need to take strays on this. I've never heard of him drinking Nitro Pepsi.
No, I've never heard of him taking Nitro Pepsi, but if you said, hey, all the bad stuff in Pepsi, what if they tripled it? He would be like, hell yeah. Don't act like he wouldn't. Come on.
We do miss Dan. We do miss.
If there's anything I know, it's that.
By the way, someone did ask about Dan in the chat this morning. So I did talk to Dan last week. Still dealing with some things. Like I said, we weren't going to get into detail here. So, we'll keep in touch, and something changes, we will let you know. Googleman, thank you. As I said, wishing you the best, my friend. So, Mr. Alex is here.
Alejandro Segovia offers $1.99 and writes, shout out to Hoag's back-to-back recordings.
back to back now.
That's right. Yes, I taped with Alex this week on his podcast to talk about things like Dragon Quest and JRPGs. It's a lovely little video. You guys should check it out. It's on his channel.
Yes, it is.
And then I taped a Virtual Legality immediately after that was over. So I had prepped for all of that before that, taped with Alex, then did Virtual Legality, and then the next day I did a Sacred Symbols for Last Stand. So I was doing videos this week, folks.
Nice.
I did a podcast unlock this week. That was cool.
Oh, did you? Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Alex, thank you, my friend. And all right, let's get to Tide's picks, of course. And I'm not quite sure why. Someone can tell me. We went Popeye this week.
This is because I said it was the year of the boat and we were sailing around.
Yeah. Also,
and look, that's the world's sexiest Bluto right there.
Yeah. Is that Bluto?
I think so.
I
guess the outfit would imply it's Bluto. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know what they went for with me. Ains, you really make a great Popeye, I must say.
I know. Big forearms, weird nose. It works.
That is a really messed up compass, though. I think that's supposed to be a compass on your hat. They did something really weird with that. And then I am not in this cartoon. I am the boy that gets captured by
Baby
Bluto.
Huey.
I don't really know what they're going for, dude.
You do look like you're in Tintin, but that's an adventuresome series.
Yeah, I do look like I'm in Tintin, which is sort of the same Silver Age of comics, but not what I think we're going for here.
Yeah, the hair on my arms grows very oddly.
Yeah, that's
concerned.
True. That is a little weird.
Is
How
that
does the hair grow
in the
on your
picture
arm,
or
man?
in life, Ains? I'm confused at that comment.
Not in life, thankfully. Yeah. But that's a little odd.
I look like the kid watching Popeye.
Kind of staring off. You still have a tie though, which is great. You're tied.
Yeah, I mean that was me as a kid, so that checks out.
And you said Tintin, so I have to pull up that we've had a running joke here about does what it says on the tin. And so Ho got into Dragon Quest 3 this week. And sure enough, for Travis's benefit, right in Dragon Quest 3, what do we get? A picture that says it does what it says on the tin.
I'm sorry, but if you are selling a knife in a tin, that is a terrible idea. That knife could totally go through tin. Tin is like a very soft metal.
Now, Travis, I know you're familiar with idioms, but that doesn't say it's being sold in a tin. It just says that the description bronze knife is what it says.
So they give you a bronze knife, and then they also separately give you a tin that describes what the bronze knife does. Explain that to me, mister.
There is no tin.
Yeah, well, maybe screw that. Maybe have a tin.
There is no spoon.
The point is that Dragon Quest, one of the fathers of role-playing games, has this description in it. And I am not crazy for using it regularly to the point where you guys started commenting on it.
No, but you are like,
hey, I defended you. I would like the record to state
in black and white. That's what I think.
Fair enough. But I had to pull that up. That gave me a good laugh this week, given all the commentary here. All right. Let's go ahead and get into it. Thank you for the early super chats, everyone. So why don't we go ahead and talk about Dragon Quest? Hogue, you've been super excited about this one. I've talked about it a little due to playing it at Summer Game Fest. Obviously, Alex did our preview and review, which you can go read on the site. He really enjoyed it. Yes, we did. We hit
poor Alex had to crunch it because he lost his PlayStation 5 in mid.
His PlayStation 5 did die mid-review. Yes, and he had to go get it repaired.
Was that related to the review copy?
I
don't think so. No, he had
just a coinky dink.
Yeah, he sent the video of it crashing, and then PR reached out to him, but luckily he got it fixed quickly and was able to get it done. But this is, one of the grandfathers of the JRPG genre, one of the kind of big classic ones. Hogue, are you living in your world here? Is this your jam?
It is my jam. Dragon Quest 3 is fantastic. But I want to talk about Square Enix for a second on this, because this is basically the third or fourth kind of different way that they have remade or remastered their old classic games. And I really like what they are doing with these. So obviously we've got the Final Fantasy VII Remake project, which is the big kind of soup to nuts, top to bottom. We're going to reimagine this whole thing and what it looks like for modern audiences. Then you've got
soup to nuts.
Then you've got kind of the halfway point of like Romancing Saga 2, which I also really like, that came out this year, which is kind of taking the exact same game, putting it in 3D and having you play through that in a way that is, again, more accessible to modern audiences. This Dragon Quest, unlike the pixel remasters for Final Fantasy, is an approach that's somewhere between kind of just upgrading the pixels and making it fully 3D with what they call HD 2D, which I hate as a designation because 2D is always high definition as we see it on our television screens, and HD doesn't really describe what the Octopath Traveler kind of setup is doing, but it's good enough to explain what it is that you're going to be looking at. So HD 2D it is. And it is bringing Dragon Quest, which is one of my favorite series, into a place where people can really appreciate it, I think, for the first time. Because Dragon Quest 3, if you go look at what it looked like when it first came out, is, I think, a barrier to entry for people to go and approach right now. And this is clearly more accessible for them. But I like that Square Enix has taken all these different approaches to bringing these games into the 21st century, because Final Fantasy now with its pixel remaster sits in a completely different place than Dragon Quest with its HD 2D remakes, which we know we're getting more of because 1 and 2 are coming next year. And this particular product is still Dragon Quest 3, but it feels like it's new, like it lives in this era with voice acting and this Octopath Traveler looking graphics engine. I do think as a design, it's still going to be a little bit hard for people to interact with. It's very kind of simple. Dragon Quest is your comfort food RPG. You are a hero. You go to different towns. They have a problem. You solve that problem. You go to the next town. They have a problem. You solve that problem. And in between, you're in what amounts to first-person battles with cute little monsters that are seeking to end your life. and it's fantastic. It's got orchestration now. It's got all of the bells and whistles that the modern Dragon Quests have, but it is an older school JRPG approach. I love it. I'm going to play this thing to death, but it's got a little bit of grinding. It's got a little bit of not a smooth difficulty curve, which Dragon Quest is really known for, and I was expecting, but it's going to drive a few people the wrong way, I think. And again, it's very simple in what it's trying to do. So I love it. I don't really blame other people who might not love it as much as I do. It's not Metaphor. It's not Like a Dragon. It's not Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but it is a very good RPG.
Well said. Yeah, I think they did, for what I've played it. I've only played several hours or so, but they did a good job of kind of smoothing out some of the rough edges of that classic design, right? There's some niceties, some quality of life updates that help with that. But to Hoag's point, at its core, it still is a 35-year, I don't remember the exact year it released, but very old JRPG with the kind of classic design sensibilities of that era. But yeah, if you love classic JRPGs, this is one of the greats. So I've seen a lot of excitement on my timeline about it. I know that a lot of people I've talked to are excited about it. So I'm happy it's out, and I'm excited, to your point, to see what Square Enix does with the rest of their catalog, because they have done a better job. Square Enix is such an enigma to me. They make strange decisions all the time, but I think what they're doing with their RPG catalog and kind of updating them in various ways and re-releasing them, I think is pretty cool. So
yeah,
apologies if I sound weird. I was sick all week and I'm still stuffed up, so sorry.
Yeah, you sound a little dorky. I love it.
Yeah.
He's allowed to sound a little nasally. It's better than sneezing all over the camera.
Yeah, I'm good enough to talk, partially anyway. Yeah, I got home from my trip to preview that other game I still can't talk about, and sure enough, by Tuesday night I was sick. I was like, oh god,
every time, trips. Dude, planes.
I know, it sucks. So I want to talk, unless there's anything else on Dragon Age, I'm going to move over to
we were talking about Dragon Quest.
Dragon Quest,
I'm sorry. Yeah, my mind, Dragon Age.
Dragon Quest 3, I believe, came out in advance of my birth. However, it has been released a few times. I remember playing it for Super Nintendo. I think they re-released it for that, and then and then I kind of remember it being on the Game Boy too at some point. So I did play this game. I don't know if I ever beat it, but yeah, it's old school, but it's a game I can appreciate, and I think I'll play this when it's like on sale. They sell it to me for like $15. I'll pick it up. But yeah, I saw it was like $40. I was like, nah, not that old game. I'll play it later.
I want to dive in, but there's just too many other things I'm playing right now. So I'm hoping over the holidays to get a little more time to dive into stuff like this. I did dive in. What I was going to segue to is Slitterhead. So I wanted to make sure to at least play it a little bit this week, so that Hoag wasn't the only one talking about it. That is an interesting game. I don't have a lot of time in it yet, so I can't speak super intelligently about it. But the opening, it doesn't waste any time, right? And then one thing I found, Hoag, is it introduces a lot of mechanics like immediately. It's like, all right, you learn to do this, now learn to do this, and now learn to do this. So it is quirky. It definitely, someone on my timeline said it feels like a 360 era type game. It certainly does out of the gate. But it's interesting, if nothing else. So you called it quirky, I think last week, quirky horror. I would agree with you. And I like what it's doing so far. I want to spend more time with it. The problem I have, I don't know if you guys do this. Hoag, I don't know if you do, because you're always talking about several games at once. But like, I'm so into Dragon Age right now and all the mechanics and buttons and everything else with that when I was trying to play Slitterhead, it's like I'm trying to remember all the new buttons, you know what I mean? And it's like, I'd rather just finish Dragon Age and then get over to Slitterhead properly. So I don't know.
I can usually separate something like Dragon Age and Slitterhead because you're not using swords and you're doing very different things. But for those games that are similar in kind of type and concept, I couldn't play Dragon Age and Final Fantasy 16 at the same time, right? You're a guy with a sword hitting monsters, but the buttons are completely different. Dodges R1 on one and circle on the other. Like, that'd throw me. But Slitterhead does not throw me as much, so I have been able to play those together.
Cool. Yeah, it was it's interesting. I definitely want to get into it more. Like I said, I just want to mention that I've been playing. I wish I could talk more about it, but I'm only maybe an hour in. I got through the intro and then kind of that early prologue area. And that's about it so far.
This is actually a good time for me to mention. Last week you called me out on telling you that I'd played Slitterhead for about 15 hours. That is what my PlayStation bar said, but it does appear that the PlayStation kind of opening menu is doubling all my numbers, or at least close to it, because it's telling me I've got like 200 hours in certain games that I definitely don't, and that kind of thing. So I think my Slitterhead time is closer to 7 or 7.5.
Okay.
Rather than 15, because I looked at the other things that I was doing, and my Dragon Age time is showing as like 110, and the save itself is showing at 53. So for whatever reason, the PlayStation bar got updated, and it is not doing the thing from the menu right anymore.
I wonder if it's something to do with rest mode, maybe. Like
I
maybe
don't use
things are running. Oh, you don't use it? Oh,
no, I don't like the rests.
From my experience, the like softwares that track how long you've been playing games are all pretty inaccurate, which is why I use a separate time tracking software when I review games, because I just got burned a couple times where I was like, this is not accurate at all. So yeah.
Well, it's funny because I do try to check in on the premise that you guys might ask that. And so I had looked at Slitterhead at 15 hours and Slitterhead Saves doesn't have its own kind of little bit of information on the time spent. Dragon Age does. So I can look at Dragon Age and say, all right, my save is at 55 hours. PlayStation thinks I played it for 130 or whatever. That's not right. So there's something wrong about that. So I did want to point that out with Slitterhead, that I wasn't as far, or I hadn't spent as much time as I suggested last week.
Oh, yeah. The only reason it jumped out to me last week because it released on that Friday and we were talking Sunday morning and you were like, I've played 15 hours. I was like, Jesus, that's a lot of time in one
day on Saturday.
Yeah. But yeah. So yeah, looking forward to playing more of that one. Like I said, I like quirky horror. It had a cool kind of day one edition for the physical people like me. So yeah, cool to support it. I don't know how it's
played it a bunch more. Still love it.
Nice. How much? So that's, I guess, what I'm curious about. I haven't looked up anything. I wonder how long it is. You know what I mean? Like I don't have any idea of how long.
I believe when I was reading about it, people were saying about 15 to 20.
Okay. All right.
And that seems right. I mean, it seems like I'm at the tail end of the ideas they have for this concept.
And if I remember correctly in the intro, sorry, Travis, go ahead.
I was saying even that feels a little long. I played about as much as you, Ains, which is like not a lot, but yeah, I could see that getting a little old.
Unless the story gets interesting, yeah. Am I right in saying that they say like Slitterhead is like part of like Chinese mythology? I think they mentioned that at the beginning of the game. Like it's, some mythological stories about these monsters that take over people and then suck the brains out of other people, type thing.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I'll quickly mention, as you can see behind me, I've got Mike Myers just hanging out. So I'll quickly mention Retro Realms, which is this box over here. So Retro Realms is one of those games we've talked about that has like, you go in and it has arcade cabinets in the home screen, if you will, and you can play multiple games within it. So this is a collection of a couple Halloween games that arrived late, which is why I'm talking about it 2 weeks after Halloween. But it's got two games in it, two 2D games in the vein of like 16-bit era, which are Ash versus Evil Dead and Halloween. And of course, you can play as Mike Myers and Ash. And, it's just these fun little platforming games with collectibles and whatnot. You can play as different characters like Laura Strode, Kelly from Ash versus Evil Dead, etc. So if, nothing crazy from a game perspective, just fun little games to enjoy if you really enjoy the IP. And if you are a horror fan like me who appreciates Halloween and Evil Dead and stuff, it's a neat little collection you can check out.
Now, I saw that in one of the eShops. I want to say it was Xboxes. And I thought, how does it compare to one of my favorites of the two-dimensional genre here, which is Splatterhouse? Have you played that, Ains?
Well, it depends which Splatterhouse you're talking about. So Splatterhouse
obviously depends on which Splatterhouse.
Well, there was a 3D kind of revival, but I don't mean that one. I mean the old school Splatterhouse.
I literally own Splatterhouse for TurboGrafx. So if that's what you're talking about, then okay. So that is these are a little more advanced than that, I would say.
Okay.
Splatterhouse, you're going back a long time. But that game was very straightforward. I loved it in the era, of course. These have a little more going on. There's a little more abilities, graphics. It's pretty well done for an old school 2D game.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, Luke is in my chat. Shout out to Luke at Xbox Expansion Pass. He did review this collection on his channel, so you can check that out as well.
And so I looked at this game on Xbox and I saw at first I was like, oh, it's a free game. And then I clicked on it and I was like, oh, you have to pay $25 per game, $50 total. That seems like a lot.
Was it $50? I didn't realize.
That's what it said. That's in my recollection on Xbox. It was like $25 per game, $50 if you wanted both.
I haven't played it enough to be able to say if it's worth that yet. I mean, obviously subjective, but yeah.
I want more realms. If they're going to do a realms kind of concept, are they making more?
It's a good question. It's Boss Team Games made that. I have to look to see if they're going to add more. I would hope so. Luke says it is a bit expensive. I agree, but the quality is high. So there you go. So I guess it is 50.
All right.
Yeah. What else? So Dragon Age. Let me go back to that briefly. We've talked about Dragon Age a couple weeks in a row, so I won't stay too long on it. I just want to say that I am 63 hours into Dragon Age now.
Jesus.
Yes, from your text, it appears you are obsessed with Dragon Age, which I'm glad to have see that connection. That has not been my experience.
I am. And the only reason I have as much time as I do, because that's uncommon for me with a single player game in a week, is because I was sick. And so, I think Tuesday morning I woke up, or Wednesday morning I woke up at 2 a.m., sick and couldn't sleep. So literally just waking up and playing hours at length of Dragon Age.
I love those
names. I am doing everything in the game. So I've done every quest. I've done every side quest. I've done every companion thing so far. And so I thought I was maybe nearing the end, but because I'm playing slow and doing everything, I may not be. I've talked to 2 different people this week that finished it, but they were over 100 hours each. One was at 108 and one was at 111 at near, 90% completion of the whole everything. And so because I'm doing literally everything, I'm like, ooh, I may be further away from the end than I realized. And I still have a lot to do. So I'm just enjoying it. I'm not trying to rush it. And, it just continues to vibe with me, as I say, in ways that I'm really enjoying. So, yeah.
I'm glad. I am sincerely glad for that. I will tell you my experience is that I feel like they've run out of evolutions. They've run out of ideas here deep into Act 2. I cannot get that main quest to change over. It feels like I'm in Act 3. It's not. I'm still in Act 2. I'm still knocking stuff out. I'm at 55 hours or something like that. So technically behind you, but probably in front of you in terms of progression.
Probably.
So I do feel like the combat has stopped evolving. And I think this combat, I said this to Alex on his video, I think this is the best BioWare combat has ever been. I really do. But I don't think it is top of class or near to it for video games in general. And I think probably for the length of time that they're asking me to play this game, it's stretched pretty thin for me. I have gone into my last couple of sessions of Dragon Age not really wanting to play it, trying to get it done so that I can talk about it more completely. And that's never a great place to be with a game. So
no,
I am glad that you are still liking it. I have enjoyed Dragon Quest a little bit more this week, as long as we're talking about dragons. The thing I've enjoyed the most this week is actually a game called Rise of the Golden Idol.
Yes,
which is a sequel to the Golden Idol original, which I think was Mystery or Case of the Golden Idol. But these games are deductive logic puzzle mystery games. And if that doesn't sound like a genre that exists, it's because it doesn't. They're really just Golden Idol games. These guys came up with this concept, and basically you're presented with a scene where something is happening, and you can click on all these various things in the scene, and they'll give you a little bit of information about what's in the people's pockets or what they're saying to the other person. And then you get a series of kind of deduction puzzles that you have to do to solve what everybody's name is in the scene, what the people are doing, why they're there, and ultimately come up with what this scene is showing. And they're kind of dark. They're murders, they're prison escapes, they're car crashes, they're fires. And they build on each other in such a cool way that you wind up with this cool story about curses and idols and old ones, or maybe not, happening in the background with all this stuff. But it's really cool. It feels like opening up an old games magazine and doing logic puzzles and getting to the end of one of these things and remembering how you felt when you first looked at the scene and say, well, I'm not going to be able to tell you anything about what's happening here because it's just nonsense. And getting to the end and realizing that you have all of these deductions that you could do from just these little pictures, these little bits of information that they give you is definitely one of my favorite experiences of the week. And in my opinion, it's an improvement even on what was one of the best mystery games of the last couple of years, which was that original Golden Idol game, which now with so many DLCs and kind of reboots of that series, I can't remember what the actual name of it. I want to call it the Case of the Golden Idol.
It is Case. It is Case.
Yeah.
Yep.
So now it's Rise. Now the Golden Idol is rising, to Rise of the Golden Idol. The previous game took place in earlier centuries. This game appears to all take place in the 1970s with a different art style, but the same concept, right? They're using Golden Idol to describe what this genre is at this point. And so I highly recommend it to everybody. This is plays great on Switch type game, undoubtedly plays great on Steam Deck. And it is one of my favorite mysteries of the year.
Awesome. Yeah, Case came out in 2022. You can get that really cheap for like $10.
And they rebooted it. I mean, one thing I want to say about Case of the Golden Idol, and you could tell that they were preparing for the sequel this year, which is that when Case of the Golden Idol came out, it was a computer game, and they brought it over to consoles, and they kind of just did a straight line port. And on the computer, you would click on words in the sentences, and they would go into your kind of database of words that you could use to fill out these kind of Mad Libs things about what the events are. But it wasn't super smooth on console, and they re-released Case of the Golden Idol this year in kind of a new package that allowed for button pressing and tabs to work better in the console space. And that is clearly what was used for the sequel. So if it at all intimidated you before, you might not have seen it in a couple of years because it is much more console friendly now.
Okay. Yeah, super, super highly rated.
It's fantastic.
It's a cool game.
The Steam one, the first one on Steam has 6,500 reviews and it's full 5 stars. So it's max rated. This was it won nominations for awards as well by Color Gray Games. So yeah, I'm sure you can get the original one for, like I said, like $10 now. So
and this game is 20. There you go. Straight up new, fantastic. Hours of fun. Tell your friends.
Awesome. Fantastic. Good to hear.
My wife likes the one that's about the vampires or vampire or whatever. It's a DLC for the first one.
Oh, yes, Lemuria.
The Lemurian vampire, yeah.
Yeah, so that all those kind of references come back in certain ways in the sequel, but you don't need to know that first game if you just want to jump in with the newest. But yeah, this is all an evolution of kind of what was being done with, you might remember Curse of the Obra Dinn a few years back. I played that. All of these kind of logic and deduction mysteries, a new way of approaching video game mysteries. And Golden Idol is one of my favorites. So if you like solving mysteries, if you like figuring things out in that vein, this is a game for you. This is really well done. And in this new one, they kind of have the different scenes connect in various ways. And then you get overarching events that you have to solve that combine all of the things you learn from the various scenes in a chapter in a way that I think is even cooler than it used to be. So, yeah.
Cool. And yeah, our chat said that the first one, so the Case of without the DLC, is on Game Pass as well.
Oh, yeah. So you could just pop your head in. Great idea.
There you go.
Because the art is weird. I do know that people have told me from Case of the Golden Idol that they don't like the art. It's basically trying to emulate the first one was kind of a Commodore 64 graphic style. And if you've never seen it before, it looks hideous. And it doesn't look fantastic. It's not aesthetically pleasing. This one uses a different art style. It's kind of a painterly approach that I think is much improved, but it's still not what you would expect in 2024, certainly. But that's not the point, folks. The point is the mystery solving.
Don't tell me the point.
Is it, does it, and I don't know anything, so if this is a silly question, just tell me. But is it where you're making choices in conversations and stuff that have an impact on what goes on? Can you change outcomes, or is it just trying to uncover the truth?
Yeah, no, you can't. You're not there. You are an observer of this thing.
Oh,
and you're presented with a scene. You aren't talking to people. You're overhearing like one sentence that they say. And from that, you can take what the other person that they're talking to's first name might be, or you can understand that they must be the janitor here. And so when another piece of information says the janitor's name is Ronald, you can apply that across your understanding of the situation until you can get everybody's names and what they're doing. This one that I'm currently on before the show started involves a lot of math. So I have to take out my pen and notebook and figure out what the math is here. People buying drinks, buying auction items, figuring out what's in their wallets, that kind of thing. And it is really, really good.
Nice.
Cool. Love to hear it. All right. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to touch on. Go ahead, Ogie. Yeah,
I don't want to just take over. People get mad at me when I do that.
Hogs notes.
The
Never
last thing I
escape Hogs notes.
The Hogs Notes jingle just gets sadder and sadder.
Yeah, just more.
All right. Well, the last thing I wanted to add, people have probably remembered that I've talked about this series in the past. It's the Digital Eclipse Gold Master series, which are essentially video game documentaries about how some of the best video games of all time have been made. They released a new one this week called Tetris Forever. And Tetris is obviously big deal, big game, great story, really big characters involved. You might have seen the Apple movie about this. It is a fantastic documentary. There's like 20 versions of Tetris in it. None of the modern versions, because you've got all sorts of licensing issues with who's selling Tetris now. But really weird Tetris versions. Certainly the Game Boy one is the one that people were probably most excited about from this series. Also weird approaches like Hatris from the NES era. But really great documentary. Love Tetris. And I love Digital Eclipse doing these things. So I always want to tell folks about them as much as possible.
Sorry, just saying hello to some people in the chat. That's good. Yeah, I saw Tetris Forever. I got like the press emails about it, but I didn't even realize it was part of this series. So that's very cool.
I think it's a bad name because I don't think it separates itself from like Tetris Effect or the other ways they've sold Tetris.
Right.
So honestly, when I saw it in the store, I didn't realize it was a Gold Master documentary game until you look at the screenshots and you see, oh yeah, there's the timeline, there's the little videos. It's really great.
I also skimmed it and was like, oh, another Tetris game until I saw on social media that people were like, game's amazing. And I clicked on it and I went, oh, what? And I immediately,
Awesome. Travis, I know we're going to segue into South of Midnight, but before that, any other games this week you want to talk about?
No, I'm good. Love you. I'm playing stuff, but not anything. I mean, I'm like behind you on Slitterhead. I'm behind you on Dragon Age. The only thing I'm ahead of you on really is Miles Edgeworth.
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I am. It's a long game, and honestly, my time is so short these days. So I'm just, I'm working on other stuff. So
okay, all right. Well, I can't talk about the other game that I saw until next week, so more on that soon. But let's go ahead then and segue over to South of Midnight. So you got to go to Compulsion Games with some of the other kind of bigger creators, but you representing obviously
Montreal
and your favorite place, doing a preview of South of Midnight, and you can finally talk about it. So hit us. What are we looking at here?
Yes, I went to Montreal to visit Compulsion Games. It is a studio that was acquired by Xbox in 2018. Thank you. Yeah. We got 2 years after 2016 was We Happy Few, I think. Yeah, it's like that. Okay, so they have made 2 games before. One is Contrast, which is sort of an indie darling that y'all may have played, and the second one is We Happy Few, which is a survival game with a story that's a commentary on the pharmaceutical drug industry. And that
is being very generous to it.
I was like, wait, what?
No, that's how they would describe it.
It's more on the war. Okay.
What's that?
I said it was more on the war, but
it's not how they describe it. People who made the game.
I think the answer is it's not really about anything. It's not a project that really made it to the finish line.
It's like an idea. You could see where they were trying to go.
Yeah,
with it. I tend to agree that they didn't really hit the nail on the head, and so did they. By the way, I talked to them about that. So it was a really cool studio visit. These are some of my favorite things you get to do when you work in games, which is go and actually talk to the developers, meet the team, make jokes about them, and in this case, they also had the performers there. As well, which the performers for the main character in South of Midnight, Hazel, which they have a different performer for the voice actress and a different performer for the motion capture person. And then they also had the person that's like overseeing their voice performances and mocap, which happened to be Ahmed Best, who is best known for his roles in Star Wars, Jar Jar Binks. And I got to interview him, which was for me personally a very triumphant moment, seeing as he's a dude I really like and also just a super nice guy.
Nice.
So yeah, South of Midnight is their third project, and if you can, even if you don't like any of their other projects, which plenty of people don't, some people missed Contrast, some people didn't like We Happy Few. I would say that the through line in all of the games that they've made is that they're a studio that really swings for the fences and makes super weird games. And they make games that aren't really like other games out there, which is cool. And I think sometimes you take big risks and you don't always hit your mark. But I think South of Midnight, based on what I have seen, and I did not play it, it was a hands-off demo. So, I got somebody over my shoulder playing the game and talking. But what I've seen so far, I think it's going to be a hit. It's a very cool looking game. So if you have not seen this game, it takes place in the American Deep South, which is a very interesting setting for a studio based in Montreal. But they went all in on it. They visited the Deep South. They have some people on their team from the Deep South, and more importantly, they hired like Americans to come and help them make the game because they know that they're going to need some of those, especially people of color, guys. They're making this game. It sort of is a mix of the Deep South as a setting, but infused with fantasy. They kind of took all of the folklore of the Deep South and the cryptids that exist in that universe and kind of put them into that world. You play a character named Hazel, who is a magic user called a weaver who uses knitting hooks. Weaving, she's called a weaver, right? And so it has to do with like the history of textiles in the Deep South as like her source of power that she fights with. And yeah, the things that stuck out with me with this game, if you guys have not seen the 34-minute documentary, y'all should watch it. It's really cool.
Yeah, I want. I just haven't yet.
Yeah, it's a really, really cool documentary. And basically the highlights I walked away with is that it's going to be a really unique game in terms of its art style, which if you haven't seen it, it uses stop motion, a animation style that's supposed to emulate stop motion. It's not literally stop motion, but it's got like you can see kind of like thumbprints on like the people when they're moving. So like very much is meant to look that way. And the imperfections of like the clay in the look. And then it's got a really interesting way that it incorporates music, which is as you play through the level and are hunting down the cryptids, or you're trying to help these different monsters, and as you go through the level, you learn about their backstory, and the music it goes from being like really simple and kind of like where they're whispering like the creature's name or whatever. Like during the demo, you're hunting down this giant alligator named Two-Toed Tom, who is a real cryptid, by the way. You guys can find him on Wikipedia. Like Two-Toed Tom is like apparently like a legendary creature like Bigfoot. And so you are hunting him down. There's like these voices in the background going Two-Toed Tom, and there's like a jazz bass line like going through it, and you're like, oh, okay, it's kind of cool. And then as you uncover the story of Two-Toed Tom and figure out its origin, the music starts to pick up. By the end, when you're doing the final boss battle, it's like singing the ballad of Two-Toed Tom, and it's really
nice.
cool. It's like one of these games where you're like, you want to listen to it more than you want to play it, which kind of leads into the part that is a little underwhelming, which is the gameplay itself was really nothing special. The combat is like you're dodging and timing your light attacks and pulling things toward you and doing executions and yada yada in a closed arena against these slimy creatures that you're going. And then also just like the platforming is like, all right, you get a double jump. You can do a midair dash. You're grappling to things with your hook, stuff like that. So it all seemed very run of the mill in gameplay. And even talking to the team, like the gameplay lead that was over my shoulder giving the demo, who I interviewed later, was sort of just like, yeah, look, we know we're never going to be like as good as the God of War Ragnaroks or whatever, but the gameplay sort of just, they're not trying to really innovate with that. They're just trying to make it engaging enough for players to get through. The innovation is really in everything else, the story that they want to tell, the characters, the music, especially the art style, all that. So
that's where I live.
Exactly.
Gameplay that just manages to keep me interested and a story that is awesome. Give me that.
Yeah, so that is literally how they're pitching it, and just based on what I've seen, I think that they're going to hit that mark, which is why I texted you guys. I labeled it a certified Hogue game, and I think if you're that type of person who is less concerned with gameplay, and people know like I'm more concerned with gameplay, I think, than a lot of gamers, but even I was just like, I want to play this game. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll get through the combat. That's not a big deal, right? But the boss fight was interesting, not because of the mechanics. Like, the alligators, chomping at you, and there's a very telegraphed move where you have a clear opportunity to jump over his, mouth and get out of the way. So it's like, all right, that's whatever. But like, I want to play that boss fight just because the song that was playing was so funny. Like, you're like hearing these guys like sing in like a blues band about this giant crocodile and his story. And I was like, dude, this is the sickest thing I've ever seen. Like, I just want to play that game purely to listen to it and kind of experience it and the story. And kind of the approach they take is that these cryptids they became monsters because of something that happened to them, and you're kind of like trying to unravel that story so that you can fix them. And so you're kind of like doing this, like, you're trying to heal these creatures, and it's very cool, man. It's like a storytelling first type of game. And so, it's going to be on Game Pass next year. I think it's coming out probably during the summer, though that is not official, but I kind of got that impression from them. And then I think it's going to be one that people should keep an eye on, because it is super interesting. Setting we don't really see a whole lot, and the music, man, really, really cool. So
yeah, it feels like just the vibe I was getting in terms of release date. You mentioned it feels like Avowed is February, right? And then this is going to be that next hit maybe in June, July, August timeframe.
Avowed is fully
July
confirmed,
or August,
right?
It is. Yes.
Yeah, Avowed is confirmed, but they just said 2025, and I could be totally wrong, but you talk to some people, you get an impression even if they're not telling you outright, so my guess is somewhere.
Yeah, not to change the subject, but Avowed went up for pre-order actually this week, so they have like a Steelbook edition and all that stuff you can get if you want to.
I really love that Avowed deep dive they did for one of their showcases a couple of months ago. So
yeah, me too.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. I think they've been doing a good job with the deep dives, and it was also interesting hearing from the South of Midnight developer, Compulsion Games. This is their first game they've made under Microsoft ownership completely, and they're talking to the creative director, founder, CEOs, that sort of stuff. They're just like, yeah, we're so glad we don't have to worry about like if we're going to be able to finish this game. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So seems like they're doing well.
A good part of what you want to hear, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. And they also said that like Matt Booty lived up to his promise of like, we just kind of want to put a protective dome over you and let you do your thing. And he's like, yeah, they've been super supportive, haven't like poked their head in. They're just like, yeah, make the game you want to make, and we'll try to get as many people to play as possible. So yeah, that was nice to hear as well. But yeah, very positive studio. Looks like a super cool game. Definitely watch the documentary. It will get you hyped. I got to watch the documentary with their team, and it was also their team's first time seeing it. So that reaction was pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Also, Ahmed Best would not tell me what character he is playing in the game, but he is definitely in that game. And I find that kind of sus. So my guess is he's probably a bad guy, right? He's got to be.
Well, I don't think they're going to have us hunt down Jar Jar in the swamps of Louisiana. So
I think they might.
Dude, I'd be in.
Go watch the documentary. There's times where you see Ahmed Best doing his mocap, and it looks like he is not a good guy, just based on what he's doing. So I don't know, man. I think he's the bad guy. I write that down, and they're not going to use him for a small part, right? Like he's going to be the main bad guy. That'd be my guess. So
you would think he'd be bigger, yeah.
No. Yeah. I think he's going to.
Sounds awesome though.
Boy. Yeah, it's really cool. I was super impressed. And just for the record, I was not hyped about this game at all before I went. I was just doing it as a favor to Ryan. But I left like pretty stoked. I'm pretty stoked for this game.
I am a person that did not love their prior output. A contrast to me in my head is the game that PlayStation 4 had when they had no other games. And We Happy Few was a game that I was excited about that really did not live up to my hopes for that game. So I am going to be cautiously optimistic on this one. Everything you have said sounds great. I can definitely live with gameplay that is average and gets the job done to get me from point A to point B. I just hope that it is at least that when the game finally comes out.
Yeah, I think it will. Yeah, I mean that is the part I'm least confident about is the gameplay because again, I was sort of just like, I don't really know how this is gonna go. But they've got some time to work on it. It's clearly where they put the least of their effort so far. So it'll be interesting. Also, for people, some people are commenting about stop motion. It does take a little getting used to. I highly recommend leaving the stop motion settings as is because you will kind of adjust to it. But they're smart enough to realize that some people are going to think that the stop motion animation is bad frame rate, and so for that reason you have the ability to turn it off. They are putting the ability to just simply turn it off in the game, but it does run at 60 fps during gameplay. That's what they're targeting. It looked like what it was running when they were playing it in the demo. Yeah, I recommend sticking with it. It doesn't make you motion sick, but it is a little jarring at first because you're like, is this game chugging? Like, is it running poorly? And then you sort of start to notice, like, oh, it's like watching Wallace and Gromit. It's like a little nice.
I really like the costume in the Spider-Man games they have that makes it look like the Spider-Verse. So I'm sure that this will work fine for me.
Yeah, I think it will. And it took like maybe 10, 15 minutes into the demo for me to like stop thinking it was a little weird. But then once you get past that hurdle, you start to appreciate it and notice like the details, and you're like, oh, it's kind of groovy. It's cool, man. They're trying some new stuff, and I'm always supportive of that. So I hope it works out for them.
It's funny. I feel a little bit like that with Veilguard. Like when I turned on Veilguard, I'm like, I'm not sure about any of how this looks at all. And I was thinking about that the whole time. And part of the 55-hour journey that I've been on is like, I turn on, I was like, yeah, it's Veilguard. It looks fine. And that's not a different animation style or anything. But you do get a little bit more used to the ridiculous kind of proportions of the bobbleheads on the bodies and the various things that are Dragon Age Veilguard that you don't think about when you play it for however many times you're going to play it.
Yeah, I'm very similar journey. The art style I've just kind of acclimated to now. I think part of what helps in Veilguard is that the cinematics, the conversations and stuff, they're just animated so well. Like it looks cool in motion, which could be, to your point, similar to this. But yeah, I like this. As we've talked about, I was fortunate enough to be in the room when they unveiled this, right? Their showcase or whatever. And I like these studios that do weird things. And the fact that exactly how you described it, Travis, I'm all in. The sound, especially, being someone who grew up on music and different things, just hearing. And I also think it's an environment or a setting that we don't see a lot of in games. So I think the
rare.
Yeah, the mythology of it and the creatures and the jazz and the blues and all that coming together just sounds really, really cool. So
it does.
It's ride around on a giant catfish, and he's got a smooth, soulful voice and tells you tales. Like, dude, come on, let's go. Let's go, giant catfish.
Sounds awesome. Yeah, good. So, and if you didn't see, you showed us this too. There's a set, if you're really into this game, there's a set that's in collaboration with Xbox and Cook and Becker, which, if you're not familiar, they do kind of higher end collectibles. Some of the prints I've shown around my game room are from Cook and Becker. That it's correct me if I'm wrong, it's an art book and
two vinyls.
Two vinyls. That's right, the vinyls. So if you want to check it out.
And they have the musical, how did they describe it? They're not like tracks because the tracks are not set. They unfold as you progress in the game. And so I think they're called like theme or like outlines or something like that. They had like some word like a frame because they said it was actually really hard to turn it into an OST because the music is so incorporated into like what you're doing in the game and at the pace you unlock it that it's hard to like condense those into a one musical number. But yeah, you guys should watch the documentary. The documentary will like make you stoked. It's very cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, I may do that later today, actually. What was I going to say? What you said about the studio is interesting because, I think in all, especially this year with all the collapses and layoffs and everything else we've talked about, hearing that the studio feels comfortable taking their time making this game and kind of protect it at the Xbox side is what we had hoped would happen with Xbox acquiring these studios. So I'm glad to hear that. I think in the back of our minds, I'll speak for myself, in the back of my mind, what I'm always concerned about is they spend 5 years, whatever, making this game something unique, right? It launches doesn't do well or doesn't see the player count or hit whatever metrics Xbox has, do they still get that same level of support for another 5 years? You know what I mean? That's my concern.
Yeah. It's a fair question. I think they're probably a little safer because they are the second smallest studio that Microsoft owns, I believe. So
they're like
pretty
70,
small
80
team.
devs now, because they were like 30 or 40 when they bought them, and I know they've expanded, but not like giant.
I don't think they're up to 70 or 80 yet. I think they're closer to 50 or 60.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. It's hard to tell though. They have a lot of contractors. Like Ahmed Best isn't a permanent employee of Compulsion Games. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't assume so.
He and his crew were there from Los Angeles, like in Montreal hanging out. So it was funny hearing them talk about food, by the way. They're all not a fan of the food in Montreal, which is very funny. Ketchup chips? What the? Yeah. It was very funny. It was good, man. It was good hang.
Then they need to go to Louisiana and get some proper soul food. And
for sure, dude. Oh my God. I've not been in years, but some of the best food I've ever had was
you want to take a nap afterwards, but it's amazing.
Jambalaya, my favorite food. My favorite food.
Jambalaya?
I do like a jambalaya, but
jambalaya, dude.
Strangely, I also don't like seafood, so I have seafoodless jambalaya.
Oh man,
no shrimp in your jambalaya?
Wow. I do not.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. You're not into seafood.
That's
that's a crazy category.
Like everything, fish,
nothing from the sea.
Wow, that's crazy, dog.
Yeah.
Some people are different.
We're gonna have to get into a full food cast on that one of these days.
Yeah, we have to unpack that. Who hurt you, bro?
I've tried
Apparently
it many
times of some form.
No.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Nothing from the sea.
Wow. All right. Well, good. Excited about South of Midnight. Excuse me. Thank you for kind of giving us the info there. That's awesome. Next time, tell them you need to bring a guest, will you? For God's sakes, Jesus.
Yeah, dude. Sure. I'll bring D.
I'm pretty close to Montreal. I could drive up.
You actually kind of.
That's true. He's closest for sure.
That's true.
So we got
like a 6.5 hour flight. So I basically burned half a day just in travel. So bummer.
We also got to look at Indiana Jones, a little deeper dive. I think it was about 9 minutes or so from Machine Games this week. Another studio, obviously part of that deal with Bethesda under Xbox now. And we're only, as we speak, 3 weeks away from Indiana Jones releasing. So we'll see that soon. I've been, kind of bullish on Indiana Jones since I've seen it. It's one of those IPs that just plays in my 80s upbringing, right? So I'm super excited to play this one. I think Machine Games is going to kill it. I only watched very briefly. I didn't even watch the whole 9 minutes because I'm just I'm already sold on it. I don't want to really dive in. But did you guys check this out at all?
I did. I watched this whole thing.
Because you've been kind of like...
Yes, and I'm going to put myself on the more positive end. I thought this was a good deep dive. I still think the combat looks terrible. And the design here, even as described in this video, is you shouldn't be getting into too much combat. It's not that kind of game, which is fine. It's almost reads more immersive sim or that kind of side of gaming than anything else. But I think they have some interesting ideas with treasures and what it means to be Indiana Jones and to have an adventure more than anything else that I'm interested in seeing where they go with it. I don't love how the gameplay sections, which are fighting, really look as much. But I think that as long as they aren't the meat in this particular action adventure sandwich, that it's going to be a good game.
Okay. All right. By the way, not to change the subject, but shrimp fried rice hashtag has shown back up. And as you're now nothing from the sea, this seems...
I've always been nothing from the sea. Shrimp fried rice was a demonstration that you could get anything trending.
I always knew you were a fake fisher girl. I don't know. Trying to go for a fake gamer girl, but with fish. But
I don't think that one landed too well.
Yeah. I tried. Yeah, you missed 100% of the shots you don't take.
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott. Yeah, so Planet Gavin says, I wasn't sold on Indy before, but I am now after the preview. He said, I like the open area level design. I had previously assumed it was more linear or corridor shooter. So I haven't, like I said, I haven't watched a lot of this, but I had assumed that it was a little more open, a little more explorative, which is why I was excited, because, you know, that's what I like in games. So was that really shown in this, Hogue?
They said it. It was part of what they said in their documentary kind of statements. It is very difficult to show in that context.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah,
so I don't think I saw that as much as I was told it.
Okay. All right. Because I would assume, shouldn't assume, but I would assume like there's going to be puzzles and things you're uncovering, right, as you kind of go around these environments. So I hope that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, it struck me that they were trying to describe something like the Uncharted Lost Legacy level, where you've got that whole big area where you're kind of going around and you can solve various different puzzles.
Yes,
at your discretion in those areas, and it sounded like that's what they were talking about. I think that's good, but it's difficult to show because they would say that sentence would pop up, and then they would show you putting a statue on a plinth, or they would show a wall getting knocked down, and it's like, yep, I mean, that's how that would look, but you can't show me the breadth of the area.
Of course. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Well, we'll know soon. We're not far off now. Feels like we've been talking about that one for a while, too. So good to see a few weeks out. I only just remembered while talking about it, I ordered the collector's edition with the globe and everything. So that one.
I would get so much crap from Mrs. Hogue if there were just packages that showed up with like a globe.
Oh, well, what are you going to do? Yeah, so that should be fun. I mean, that one really plays into my childhood. I've probably watched, which, you know, in hindsight, obviously I don't appreciate it as much as Raiders or Last Crusade nowadays, but as a kid, Temple of Doom, like I watched that movie
Dr. Jones,
endless amount of times. Like,
absolutely.
It's funny. It's the same for me. When I was dreaming when I was a kid about potentially having a TV in my bedroom, one with a VCR, which, kids, is something that you would put a videotape in order to play a movie. I would always envision the TV was playing The Last Crusade. Like, that's what I wanted to watch in my room. So yeah. Nice. And during reading time in grade school, I would read Indiana Jones books as one of the free read kind of things. I really liked one called The Genesis Deluge that was about Indiana Jones finding the Ark, not of the Covenant, but Noah's Ark in this particular instance. And it was a good book. It was fun.
Did you ever watch the TV series about young Indiana Jones?
Oh yes.
Yeah,
dude. Yeah. Classic.
Yeah, and I have them in various box sets because they came with, like, when Lucasfilm was selling the Indiana Jones DVDs, they were big long documentaries about the age that they were talking about in this particular episode of Young Indiana Jones. So you'd get like a World War I documentary with your Young Indiana Jones. And I loved that. I love edutainment, as it were. And so that was a really cool series.
Yeah, I actually first found out about Young Indiana Jones because, again, it was a little before my time, because a teacher in like middle school or high school had us watch the episode about the Treaty of Versailles, because I think he's around during the World War I treaty.
He's Forrest Gump, man, in that era. He's everywhere.
He's just around and everything. And so we watched that episode, and I was like, "This show is sick. Like, why have I not heard of this?" And I went and I watched it all. Like, I think.
He fights the Red Baron. He gets around.
Yeah, dude. That was a sick series. I wonder if you can get it digitally.
You can, 100%.
Really?
I'm sure you can. Yeah, it's
got absolutely. I have all of Young Indiana Jones on my Voodoo Now Fandango at Home account.
Oh yeah, you gotta love that Fandango at home. I always say that. I'm like, oh, we'll watch it on Fandango at home, and then I look directly into the camera and receive my $50 stipend.
Marketing is not great. Yes, I think the Voodoo name was better, but I'm not in charge.
Is this still owned by Walmart?
No, Walmart sold it to Fandango. That's how it changed.
Oh, that's cool. Good for them.
Let's go back and see if Travis remembers this, but I still remember as a kid buying the Indiana Jones book that came with the small vinyl, and you would put the vinyl on the record player, and it would basically narrate the book to you while you read through it. And it would have sound effects.
Did it tell you when to turn the page? What was the sound for turning the page?
I don't remember, but it had sound
These
effects. You know what I mean? Like things would happen in the action scenes. But yeah,
The one I most remember that I had with the record and the book was a novelization, which is being very generous to a kid's book like this, of the Gremlins movie.
Nice.
Hell yeah, dude.
Gremlins, classic. I had that on recently. That's a Christmas movie. Gremlins, come on.
It is a
Coming
Christmas
up.
movie, absolutely.
That's right. Yep.
Young Indiana Jones volumes 1-3 is on sale right now. Fandango at home.
There you go.
Your
Go get
boy's
it.
buying it. Your boy, let's go.
Let me give you my Fandango at home affiliate link. Let's get it done.
Oh yeah, there you go. You got
There
me,
you go.
dude.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know. I used Voodoo before. Like, I don't know why. I feel like it just has stuff that's not on the other platforms. So sometimes you can like find things.
You can connect your Voodoo/Fandango at home to all of the other digital accounts that you have.
Yeah.
And then they all pop up wherever you're looking. So
Yeah, dude. Thanks for the affiliate link. Appreciate it.
That's right.
Nice. So that is South of Midnight, Indiana Jones. Like I mentioned too, Avowed did get its kind of pre-order thing live this week, so it looks like it's good to go for February as planned, which is that week of February is going to be absurd. So just a reminder that 1 week we get Avowed, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Monster Hunter Wilds, and there's like 2 or 3 other releases that same week. And I'm like, what? There's got to be another week to release games. Like, what are we doing?
Them all in one day.
I'm forgetting as well. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway, but we did get more news out of Xbox Camp this week, which was good timing because obviously we've been talking about PS5 and PS5 Pro last couple of weeks. So this week is Xbox focused because Phil Spencer sat down with Bloomberg for an exclusive interview. He also talked to Rolling Stone, but a couple kind of things to discuss out of the Bloomberg interview. So we'll just go through these bullet by bullet and guys just jump in. So really the first one was he was talking about acquisitions and, obviously the AB deal, still kind of working through that, obviously with, 10,000 plus employees, which is crazy. So basically what he said is that, there are future acquisitions that are, sorry, I'm all stuffed up. Future acquisitions that are still possible depending on geography and technology is what he said. Really looking at Asia, obviously goes without saying, and kind of focusing on China as well as mobile environment. So he did say, I think he made a comment around the acquisitions being, a little on the smaller side. I don't really know what that means. If they're
hard to go
size.
bigger. So yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So, kind of interesting here, but not surprising in the sense of, I think that all of the companies are looking into those markets. We've talked about it here a lot, right? China, South Korea, India, etc. So, he said, but primarily they are focused and spending a lot of time on continuing to merge Activision Blizzard with their core company, right? So, which makes sense.
We've talked about it here, but they went from 12 development studios to 30 something. Like that's gonna take
in
some
like 5
digestion.
years. Yeah, no doubt. The interesting thing, if you didn't see relating to this, is that Avowed can be pre-ordered and played on Battle.net, which is Blizzard's launcher, obviously. So it's obvious that Xbox is starting down that path of saying this is one company and you'll be able to play these games wherever you want to play them, right? Which will lead into the ad campaign we'll talk about here in a minute. The other thing that came out of this was handheld. So there's been a lot of insider chatter, as we like to joke about here, and kind of rumors around Xbox handheld. Handheld market has grown. Steam Deck, helped with that. You have the ROG Ally and a bunch of other devices out there now. Basically, what Phil said is they are researching that, they're looking at it, but and they probably will want to, work in that space. However, it's at least a few years away. So those who may have been holding out hope for an Xbox handheld in 2025 or something like that, doesn't sound like that's going to happen. But I do find it interesting that, Xbox may officially, from a first party perspective, play in that space in the future, similar to what Valve did with the Steam Deck or Nintendo for the Switch too, So
I mean, it's hard to say what Nintendo is doing. Like, do those numbers count specifically for the mobile market? It really depends on how you kind of set your accounting. But yeah, that's not a surprise to me. Hardware takes a long time to kind of suss out, figure out, develop, and then get your logistics pathways in place. So I think people wanted a mobile Xbox sooner. It doesn't surprise me that it's a couple years away. And it doesn't surprise me that insiders started hearing inklings of this earlier on. But to me, it's a non-story right now. But I opt on a smaller time frame. I'm really only looking at about a year in advance on any of this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I know there's, anecdotally, there's a market for it. I talk to a lot of people who play in the handheld space, from Switch to Steam Deck to Ally, like I said. I don't know how big that is for Xbox. Obviously, they're the ones studying that, right, to see what that means and what cost of production and all those other factors that go into creating a device like that. For me personally, I don't have much interest. I do have a Steam Deck. Obviously, I have a Switch. My Steam Deck gets played like 3 times a year. And it's literally when I travel. I never played at home ever.
Yeah.
So it's just a waste for me. I should probably sell the damn thing, to be honest with you. But yeah,
don't play.
Say it again.
I have 2 of them that I don't play.
Yeah, I mean, So yeah, but we'll see. I think it'd be cool. I mean, I'm down for more first party options or more options in general in that space. Especially if they can incorporate, they're going to continue to evolve cloud technology and their kind of connection, right? And then continue to evolve their Xbox app, which is the next thing you talked about. So what that looks like maybe in 2028, right? As a device from a tech perspective and ecosystem perspective for Xbox could be a lot more interesting than 2024. So, see. But on the app, he said their immediate focus is improving their Xbox app. He said it's good, not great. That's an exact quote. And he said that they wanted to work on more devices more efficiently, which I think if anyone's used the Xbox app in different spaces, makes a lot of sense. They need to really kind of evolve that to the next level and make it more cohesive as a design.
I do hate it for some reason. I'd have to look into why I react so negatively to it.
I do hate it for some reason.
No. I mean, it's in my head as, I don't turn that on because I hate it. But like, I'd have to go in and analyze why that is.
Well, a lot of the stuff doesn't work, man. Trying to set up a existing Xbox on there, I always run into an error, and it's been that way for like over a year, and they haven't fixed it. And just I have so many problems with the Xbox app. Good, not great is definitely him being nice to himself. That is. I would not describe it.
That's being nice to his teams.
Yeah, you don't want to
exactly right.
I would say
right.
Terrible, not catastrophic. Maybe.
Probably not actively hurting our goodwill in the entire marketplace.
Yeah, and definitely needs an overhaul. And I think that's one. People have been asking for that for a while.
They have, and they have, to their credit, they have made some improvements recently to it, but it's still not great. And depending on where you go, like, you know what I mean, its experience is varying. There is a reason why. Well, there's multiple reasons, but one of the reasons why people still buy Xbox games on Steam, even if they're on Game Pass on Xbox app on PC, you know what I mean? It's just a more cohesive platform. So, the biggest, I think, quote that got taken up by creators at sites this week was around stuff we've discussed endlessly here, which is, he said, quote, "I do not see sort of red lines at our portfolio that say thou must not." He said it's, about where games exist. Sorry, I cut off the quote on our sheet here. But basically, he said he doesn't see any red lines around what games can end up on other platforms. And he said it's too early to make any decision on the next version of Halo. I've gone on record saying I really do believe the next Halo will be a reboot of CE and the Unreal Engine as an exploratory kind of project for them. And it would not surprise me at all to see that on PlayStation. As well as potentially the next Switch, depending on, like we talked about last week, what that hardware looks like and that environment looks like. So I don't think this is surprising, guys. A lot of people made a big deal out of this, but I don't see why you'd be surprised at this point in time.
That's actually my comment as well, is that I saw this quote, I saw this interview, and I said, yeah, okay. And then the internet does what the internet does. And a huge number of people made content on this no red lines kind of concept. And I guess from a corporate speak kind of standpoint, if I'm Phil Spencer or if I'm advising him on what to say in an interview in 2024, it's don't commit the company to something that you'd have to take back in the future. And so no red lines to me is a non-stance of we're going to evaluate these things. We don't know. Chances are, I agree with you, Ains, that a lot of these are going to make sense when we analyze what the market share is and where we can make money at point X in the future. So I don't want a video clip of me saying that absolutely won't happen back in 2024. But I don't view it as news.
Agreed. 100%. Yeah. And the funny thing is, right, ever since the beginning, well, I won't say the beginning, but when they first started talking about the Activision Blizzard acquisition and, rumors started to spread about Xbox kind of spreading out more to get to recoup money and just make money, right, for their business perspective. Sorry, man, I'm so congested.
No, I feel bad for you. It's okay.
Yeah, sorry. He said, case by case basis was the tagline or the quote that was kind of latched onto, and that still rings true. I mean, they're evaluating every game for every platform, and I don't think that's going to change.
Yep. Not everything is console warring. It's just the CEO of a major company saying, I'm not going to commit to a future set of actions that will be based on future set of affairs that I can't speak to right now.
Yeah. Why not?
Everything should be a console war. Yeah. That upsets me.
Man, we got enough wars. We got enough console culture. Otherwise, we got too much stuff going on, people. Just enjoy your lives.
Nah. As one of my heroes said, give in to your anger, your hate. Gives you focus, makes you stronger.
Emperor Palpatine is one of your heroes, Travis?
Yeah, dude. Are you serious? Hell yeah, dude.
Fair enough.
There you go.
All right.
He went on to say that the Xbox business has never been more healthy. That's a direct quote. He cited growth in cloud and PC gaming as well as console usage. And his next quote is, the business is performing right now, which is a non-statement. And I think that means a more healthy future for hardware and the games we build. And that, I think what he's alluding to is rather obvious. You can tell me if you disagree, but it's what we've talked about here many times is, that is the positive of thinking, get out of your console war mindset, to Hoke's point, enjoy the games where they live, where they release. And the more money they make from releases going everywhere, we get to see more of South of Midnight's, right? And that's where I try to think from a healthy perspective of stop worrying about where these games exist. And let's hope that their business is healthy so they can continue to support studios like Compulsion Games and projects like South of Midnight.
Yeah, I think that is the optimistic bent of this, right? I think you do have people.
I'm an optimist
that look at the Xbox brand as necessary to compete against primarily PlayStation, and to the extent that it weakens itself, that's going to hurt the ability to push Sony and PlayStation out of their comfort zones, which appears to be just remaking things for you until you die. And so I do think that there are people that can look at this and say, well, maybe they're backing off of their competitive stance. And from Microsoft's perspective, that can make all the sense in the world. But from my perspective as a gamer, I don't love a new kind of monopolar game industry that has PlayStation sitting there deciding not to make games for long periods of time. Now, to them, I would say Nintendo is still going to compete for your time and attention, and Xbox is still going to compete for your time and attention, because PlayStation, all other things being equal, would prefer to make 100% on the dollar of their games being sold on their PlayStation ecosystem and not 30%. So they're still going to have an incentive to compete on these metrics, even if that hardware console war kind of blends together a little bit more than you or I might be comfortable with.
Yep.
Counterpoint.
Counterpoint, Travis.
Pick the corporation, fight for them, crawl over glass for them, and aim to kill the people on the other side at any cost.
I mean, you can obviously elect to do that, but just don't be surprised when the corporation, while it's walking over your crawling corpse,
that's right,
decides to put a bullet in you on the way past.
That's right. Be a hatchet man for the New World Order. And remember, the console wars have been completely bloodless so far.
Somewhere somebody can make a really dystopian sci-fi novel about the console wars erupting into actual wars.
Oh my God. Let's see. What else did he say? He said, I feel pretty good about where this industry is going, which take that as you will, given the year we've had. But he says to reach new players, we need to be creative and adaptive of new business models, new devices, new ways of access. We're not going to grow the market with $1,000 consoles. I feel like he's been saying that same thing for years and people still don't listen for whatever reason. But I think it's a very, again, this isn't news to me.
This is change is hard.
Yeah, I guess.
He is right. I agree with him. Change is hard. All those
Correct.
statements are true.
Yeah, I think it's so we talked about this a lot. If you want to see me and not just troll and be completely useless in this conversation, we did talk about this on Podcast Unlocked. But yeah, I think Xbox realizes that they're not winning the game that currently is being played in the console industry, and they're trying something new. And that's what you do when you don't really have much of a chance to beat the competition using the current model. And I think the way they're trying to change the market is smart if it works. So we'll see.
I mean, it's smart to try either way, but yeah,
Smart to try.
Like a football play. If it doesn't work, it looks dumb. There's certain
Most decisions are smart if they work.
If it works, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the dumb thing to do, even if it works, would be to just keep chasing PlayStation. Because even if you gain some, some market share, you're ultimately attaching yourself to what I would say is kind of like an older way of doing things. And
you're going to go off the cliff eventually, and
exactly.
You're going to keep your job for the most part, because the conservative approach, small c conservative approach, does let you keep your job because it makes a certain amount of sense in the market as it exists. But this is that kind of break the wheel, burn it all down, let's do something different because we're not going to win that race kind of approach. And that can go really wrong or it can go really right. Chances are it doesn't just wind up in a tie scenario. So I respect that. I respect that kind of let's think about things a different way, but it can feel really weird and really bad to people on the outside seeing their Xbox brand be changed into something different, seeing PlayStation kind of laughing in the corner, making Last of Us Part 2 again, whatever it might be. I understand those feelings, but I do think this is smart from Microsoft.
I do too. Maybe that's just because I'm a tech guy and kind of work in the space, but I feel like this is the direction it needs to go anyway, right? And they have obviously they have the money, but they have the kind of corporate technology needed to make this push. We've talked about that, right? They can make this push easier than say Nintendo can, and they are utilizing that in the way I think they should be doing. To your guys' point, whether or not it works the way they think it's going to work, we'll see. But I like the direction. By the way, Jose,
they're going to lose big or they're going to win big. I mean, that's the bet. And other people would be more comfortable slowly losing over time, which is where Microsoft and Xbox was going. Well, you see this, and I use sports as an analogy, but you see this with coaches and organizations that decide that we're okay looking like we're kind of potentially a contender as long as we lose close enough over the course of many years. And the counterpoint there is, no, we have to do something completely different to get past this hump. And Microsoft is doing the latter, and that can go really wrong. It can.
Yeah, of course. By the way, shout out to Jose over at the Nerd Chat, our friends over there. He says, I smell SG's next t-shirt. The console wars are bloodless so far.
Followed, and then some eyes that are like staring menacingly. Yeah, I love that. Good.
That's good. It's good. Let's see here. And of course, he mentioned $1,000 consoles there. We joked. We didn't joke. We talked about the PS5 Pro last week. He also spoke to Rolling Stone this week on mid-gen, and they asked him about mid-gen refresh consoles. And his quote was, "We don't need to do incremental hardware for our own benefit," which sounds like a jab in and of itself. Does a new device really give you a unique experience on the screen in some way? It's less like the old days going from the original Xbox to 360. That was standard definition to high definition. Now it's harder to show the benefits. So, he's been pretty clear about this. He said this again before. It sounded like they were comfortable with the Series X being where it is until they can present a, quote, new experience to Xbox users. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think we talked about it last week. I think the majority of the market agrees.
Oh, vast majority. I mean,
vast
it's no
majority.
Question. It's not close to 50.
Yeah.
No. So, yeah, I think that's clear. I think looking at it from what people have been able to present to me as the benefits of the Pro, it looks in the ballpark of what I've got with either the X or the baseline. So I tend to agree with that position again. But, yeah, I want to see fancier, shinier things on my television screen as soon as possible. But I'm not up for $1,000 console, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked
lack
about
of loading times is, I think, the big improvement.
Hey, man, I play a lot of games on my Switch.
From
loading
this gen,
times
you
are
mean?
Fine.
Yeah, for this gen, lack of loading times. That's the winning outcome for me.
Okay.
Although you do get fewer tips, fewer did you
I
knows.
do like it when you have to select. No, please keep the loading screen on so I can read that sentence. Crazy.
Yeah, those are funny. But that's pretty much it for the Xbox side of the house. That was like all the kind of meaningful, or you can decide if it's meaningful information from Phil this week. There was a funny quote from Sarah Bond, which I'll just call out from a corporate perspective. I don't know if you guys saw this, but someone asked her about it resurfaced. I believe it was from prior. Someone can correct me, but it resurfaced. But basically saying that she's not. She said, "I'm not paid to do what Phil says. I'm paid to do what is." Damn it, I don't have the quote in front of me. But she basically said, "I'm paid to do like what Xbox needs," or something like that, or what his vision, execute on the vision. So I thought that was a funny quote. But clearly she was focused on a lot this year in terms of the face of Xbox, and that transition feels like it's continuing in real time as Phil has now been the head for quite a while. 2014? When did he become the head of Xbox? I think it was 2014, which would be a decade already, which is crazy.
Well, I know, and I know Sarah Bond has been working with the Epic folks to break into the mobile spaces, and that's as important for Xbox as a group as the hardware and some of the stuff that we're more likely to talk about. Yeah.
Yep. So. Anyway, good information there out of Xbox. So we will come full circle. There's one thing I wanted to talk about on the Game Awards, which came up this week, which was kind of funny. So, which apparently you get to vote on this year, you said, Travis.
Yeah, I do. I already submitted my votes.
Are you serious?
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
The nominations come out on Monday, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The deadline was over a week ago.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Because I didn't realize we're that late into the year already. I'm forgetting.
I would like to move that people do not recognize the Jeff Keighley Game Awards as the sole arbiters of what is the best game or games of the year. He does not deserve a higher tier than a lot of the other people that you might.
Chairman?
Yeah.
Move it to a vote?
Yes.
Or should we enter discussion?
Confirmed.
What? That's not how that works. This guy has never done Robert's Rules of Order, my dude.
No.
Wow.
I said here. So I'm agreeing in British.
That's. Parliament. I mean, the parliamentary procedure uses Robert's Rules of Order, my friend.
But yes, completely agreed. It's kind of a shame it's done that. But the topic for today is the fact that I think this has been this way. Someone can correct me, but it kind of came out, someone was asking about expansions, DLC, are they eligible? And basically what it was confirmed is that yes, expansions, DLC content is eligible for all categories, which of course means we don't even have to have the show, because that just means that Shadow of the Erdtree can now win Game of the Year, and we can move on to 2025.
It might. That coming out and being disclosed in that specific way might indicate that Erdtree is in that Game of the Year list.
Okay.
But
let me shed some light on this.
Yeah, go nuts.
That's why you're here.
So
it's the only reason why you're here, honestly, Travis.
Keighley,
so do something.
Yeah, exactly. Keighley, to his credit and discredit, has a very, very hands-off approach to the Game Awards.
He hates telling the jury anything.
He doesn't really give rules for what can be nominated. Like, I was basically told, I was told that if I wanted, I could put GTA 6 as the winner for every category, right? A game that hasn't even come out
that
yet.
Game's not out, Travis.
Exactly. But I was told that is 100% my discretion. Like, I was asking for clarifications on the rules, and I was given zero, helpful feedback.
Are you limited to video games?
I don't
Can you name a movie game of the year?
I think if I put a book on there, they would be like, all right, best of luck. Like, literally, the guidelines are non-existent from what I could tell. The reason I was asking questions is because I was looking at best VR category, and I was like, well, does Asgard's Wrath 2 count? Because that came out in December of last year after the Game Awards, and they were just like, put whatever you want. Like, there was no guidelines. But Keighley kept reaching out to people that are involved in this process to remind them that you can nominate DLCs, which to me is
Are you pushing Erdtree, Keely?
Is a little bit of a thumb on the scale for Erdtree, honestly. And it was like the only thing that was clarified. Like,
jokes on him when Lake
clarified.
House gets nominated.
Yeah, like nothing was clarified, but he was like, "Hey guys, don't forget you can nominate expansions." So I
mean, he is a Sam Lake fan.
I know, but I just saw a little bit of like, really, come on, dude. And so
to me, I agree. From the outside, obviously, I'm not the insider that you are on this, Travis, but every indication we've ever gotten from Keely on this is hands off to the point of abdication of responsibility. I'm not going to tell you what a fighting game is. I'm not going to tell you what a sports game is.
Clearly.
I'm not going to tell you what's eligible for game of the year. I'm not going to tell you that you have to limit it to the year, even though game of the year is a concept. Correct. So I understand how you get to there. The real problem I had with this paragraph that I saw online from the fact of how these things are is that reviewers should take into account the value and price of the DLC and expansion. And like that 100% cannot be a factor in whether something is high quality. It cannot. We've talked about it here. Agreed. The marginal value of $1 is different for everyone. And it just does not factor into what the product is actually delivered.
Most importantly, how much you pay for a game does not improve the quality of the game or lessen it. It might improve or decrease the perceived value that you get from your purchase, but it does not make the game better if you paid less for it. It just makes it a better deal. So yeah, I'm 100% of that, and I think everybody has their own styles with this, but I think the rules as you read them, like I could tell you, I did not take price into account when I did my things. I believe you, that clause because it's dumb.
So and technically, this also means. I'm sorry, Travis. I was just gonna say, Last of Us 2 remastered could technically be on the game.
Last of Us 1 original formula could be nominated because there are no guidelines.
I nominate Star Control 2 as the game of the year. Not because it released this year, but just because it's always the best game that I played that year.
Which means Keely wants Death Stranding 2 to win already, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, of course. It better win, or else he's gonna cry on camera.
See, by the way, Keely being biased. It's a strange thing to describe completely hands-off as biased. Yes, as Travis describes, he might be putting his thumb on the scale in some ways, but we are assuming what that thumb might even mean. Like, this isn't bias as much as it's kind of trying to let the press, the jury, decide whatever it is that they think is appropriate because he doesn't want to be seen as biased on any of this stuff, probably to the point of abdication.
The way I am interpreting it is he's saying, hey, look, I'm getting you guys on this panel because you're the experts, right? And so you guys tell me what should win, and I'm just going to like stay out of your way. The problem is you have to create parameters because it's a whole group of people who all might have different interpretations of what that means. And so sometimes you get weird results. And so I think there's a middle ground between these like laissez-faire and like being super strict and like kind of railroading people into what's going to win game of the year. I don't think he's doing the latter at all. But the former, he's certainly like, I won't even provide a brief description of what the category means.
There are weird categories. Don't forget, there's games for change. There's all sorts of things that you just bring whatever you want to it.
Games for change has one of the more specific definitions, but like the one that really messed me up is that there's two nominations right next to one another. One is called Best Action Game, and the next one's called Best Action Adventure Game. And I was just like, okay, but you have to tell me what those mean because my definition of an action game and an action adventure game are completely different than other people. And I'm sure 0 people on the panel voted for those two categories with any consistency. Like they all had their own kind of impressions of what those mean. And so I checked with some people at IGN and was like, hey, how are you defining this and what games are you including? But like generally speaking, you're going to get a lot of weird answers for those two categories. And so I think there is a middle ground. Like you can tell what your categories are, and then you also don't get any input into what the categories are, which I have a lot of problems with, like the format, like I've talked about on this show. The sports/racing game I think is super dumb that they're both lumped into the same category, and it's just a family game. Like, what does that mean? Like,
It means not Final Fantasy 16 if you have any concerns about language, parents.
Yeah. I mean, I know. Yeah. Is it like the best game without cursing? You know, is it the best game that is a cartoon? I don't is it a game that you
It's Astrobot is the answer to this question.
Does it have to be multiplayer so you can play it with your family? You know what I mean? Like, I
yeah,
just
like
have
is it co-op? Yeah,
exactly. Does it have to be co-op? So I just have a lot of questions about this. And as you guys know, I really am like a stickler on like knowing parameters and the filters before I come up with a decision. And so this was my worst
man,
nightmare.
the fact that you were asked what the best of any category was, I just imagine Travis in a cold sweat. Well, like 6 a.m. trying to put his nominations together.
Here's the thing, though.
What is best?
It's a lot easier when the parameters are narrow. Of like, it has to be this year, and it has to be in this category. And I have my own opinions of what that category means. But like, the problem with Ains is he did not put enough filters on the question, and so my overloaded. Like, if you just say best game of all time, cross genre, any all time, any platform, it's like, okay, dude.
But it doesn't sound like Keeley put on enough.
Does checkers count? Yeah, no, I mean, he didn't put enough enough parameters, but I was able to add my own parameters just by virtue of like it's the 2024 Game Awards, so I'm only going to look at stuff in 2024, and then I extended that to include December and games that weren't qualified for last year, and I like did my own thing, but it's a little weird knowing that there's probably a ton of people who also voted on this who did not apply those same parameters and might have been doing their own thing or completely forgot about December, and so Asgard Draft 2 is just never going to be considered.
You're going to get swamped by weirdos, Travis.
Exactly. Democracy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is literally the problems of democracy playing out yet again in real time. So good
time. Here is the actual thing that was shared around, by the way.
Man, we have a lot of slides this episode. You're nailing it.
We do. I'm just, informing people, So that's what was shared around.
Yes, factors such as the newness of the content and its price value should be taken into consideration. Not even may be taken into consideration. Should. It's like, come on, get off it. Go away, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. But I'm at least glad that Shadow of the Erdtree could win Game of the Year now. No, I'm kidding. In all seriousness, as much as I love Shadow of the Erdtree, and I think I've said my piece on that plenty of times, it should not win Game of the Year. It's not a game. I have a separate category. Why not have expansion of the year?
They do, don't they? Yeah.
I don't think so.
I don't think they do.
I think they have best ongoing game and they have stuff related to that, but they don't have best like DLC/expansion.
Because didn't we talk about that with Phantom Liberty last year?
They absolutely should have best. No, yeah. Phantom Liberty was nominated for Game of the Year.
That's what I mean. It's not a game. Like
as was like remakes and remasters. I also think should be its own category and not eligible for Game of the Year.
Well, again, we need rules and contours around this, right? Final Fantasy VII Remake is not Final Fantasy VII in any reasonable way. And so that's eligible, right? I would argue things like Romancing Saga 2, as much as I love it, are the same exact game in 3D. That's not eligible.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably would have said like Resident Evil 4 Remake was not eligible.
I literally was just looking that up. As you said that, yeah.
Because it was nominated. And I think there were 2 remasters/remakes nominated last year. And I was just like, why? So,
but all I'm telling people here is that you do not have to give your judgment or your understanding of what was important or good in the year 2024 to Jeff Keighley and the Game Awards. And correct. I am saying that even though I know Travis is a new voter on this, and I'm very happy for him on that. It's just that there are various other outlets and people and even yourself that can decide what you like the best that year.
Correct.
Honestly, on this particular question, DLCs and expansions, Phantom Liberty was not the one that I was thinking of. The one that's the most difficult for me is that Cyberpunk 2.0 is almost a completely different game than Cyberpunk 1.0. And should that be eligible for nomination? I can't actually answer that, but I would want contours around whoever is setting up the award ceremony to do so.
Yeah, and that's where like the ongoing game stuff gets really confusing then, right? Because you can look at a game like that, like 2.0, which changed foundationally a lot of Cyberpunk. You can look at things like what's a good example here? Something that changed completely.
Yeah, I'll say qualitative evaluation of games, both for reviews and for a Game of the Year awards, has gotten way harder in the era where like the game that comes out is not the game that you will be playing 6 months from now. And that has just made it really hard, and it's an imperfect system, but I do think what is helpful is if you're going to do this stuff, if you're going to write a review, if you're going to have an award that you want to give to certain games, you just really need to be specific about what counts and what people should consider and what they shouldn't consider.
Agree.
I think that's the thing that this award show is lacking. And even as a recently added voter, I'm super happy to participate in it. But like, I agree with Hogue on this. Like, you should definitely not give like any special credence to this game award show just because it's the one with the biggest funding. Like, IGN does its own award show, which I think is also perfectly valid and sometimes ends up with results I don't agree with. Everybody's going to have their own parameters here, but I will
As we
say,
say with reviews, it's always opinions. It's just opinions.
Exactly. It's always opinions, and there's always a style guide somewhere you can read that kind of explains why people what parameters they're using. But I will say this about IGN. IGN obsesses over parameters and what counts in the bucket and what doesn't count. And they're like, they have meetings where they're just like, this is what this bucket is, and here's what's going to count, and here's what's not going to count. And they get really into the weeds on that. And I think that's something that more awards shows should do. It's harder to do.
Well, and a lot of people have their issues with IGN. I'm certainly one of those from time to time, but I've said it here and I've said it a lot of times. I love their little numbers guide. Their little descriptions for what the numbers mean are fantastic, and honestly should probably be attached directly to every review.
I agree. It's a link now, but it should probably just be in the description.
I mean, as soon as the Game Awards gave God of War over Red Dead 2, it was over. Like, stop it. For shame.
Did they actually?
Yeah.
There's
That's
a lot of
crazy.
for shames, man.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of those. Yeah, no doubt. A couple super chats and comments to get to here. So just BKZ, excuse me.
Just BKZ offers a $2 super chat and writes, nomination of Little Nemo Dream Master is valid.
It's old school, but it's valid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do it.
apparently you can do that if you are part of the Jeff Keighley panel.
I'm nominating Rise of the Golden Idol for best sports/racing.
There are no parameters. You could for sure do that. The problem is
Nice.
you'd have to get enough people to make that mistake, but we have seen stuff like that happen. I mean, the fact that Sifu got nominated for best fighting game by enough people to show up on the ballot is crazy.
Ridiculous. I actually would kind of find it funny if, to your example, if everyone just put Grand Theft Auto 6 for every category,
Yeah,
because
that'd be awesome.
immediately it would
Wipe
force,
Keeley out.
it would force the show to completely,
They'd have to
reset.
change their parameters.
Yeah.
No,
If
we
we had a
should
rebellion, our nominations will be delayed a week.
yeah.
Thank you, Just
infighting.
BKZ. Shoosh with a member comment.
Shoosh, member for 16 months, writes, which celeb will Jeff invite this time? Ooh,
Is
good
Vin
question.
still available?
Who?
Vin.
Diesel?
Yes.
I hope not.
Man, I hope so.
Jesus.
He needs to be at every award show.
No, the
let's
truth
see.
is, who's in Death Stranding 2? So like Ellie Fanning?
No. Well, I mean, they'll probably do that, but what I'm thinking,
Think of one.
Hogue, is that he's asking about the awkward, out of place, not in any game celebrity that they put at the end, like it was Timothée
Pacino?
Chalamet, it was Pacino the year before. So I'm thinking like that, like what is the like completely left field, did not need to be involved in this celeb that they're going to throw out there? That's a
Sabrina
good one.
Carpenter.
Oh, if they couldn't get her. Okay, first of all, she's way out of their league. Way out of their league. No way can they get Sabrina Carpenter. But if they could get Sab C, that'd be cool. I don't think it's
Sab C. Oh
Yeah,
my
dude.
God.
Sab C, that's what she's called in the Northup household. No big deal.
Oh boy.
Wow. Elu says, bring in Snoop. Everyone loves Snoop. Snoop's everywhere. So, yeah, I mean, why
Snoop
not?
is a
Snoop
legit
is fully
gamer.
sold out.
Well, he's also a legit
Yeah.
gamer. Like I was at a party in LA with him where he was getting his what?
I
So what?
like your random name drops of, well, I was in a party in LA with Snoop.
Okay.
And
The reason I was at a party with him in LA is because he was getting his own gaming headphones. It was like Snoop style headphones, and it was like the release party, and he performed there. And afterward, I was talking to him, and I found out that he streams, or at the time, he streamed 2 nights a week on Mixer. And I was like, "What? I can watch you just like play games 2 nights a week?" And he was like, "Yeah," and it like blew my mind. I was like, "That's crazy." But apparently, he still streams, and you see him. He posts on social media about like when Xbox Live is down, he's like mad about it.
you know,
He's
he's
like
a
a
big
legit gamer.
businessman. I've also
Yeah.
interacted with Snoop. I cannot
Nice.
say how
I have not interacted with Snoop, so that's only 2 out of 3 on this panel, apparently. Yeah.
Wait, so you're allowed to say that you interacted with him, but not the context? That seems like
I'm really not allowed to say the first part so much, but without the context, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Shush, thank you, and shout out to Shush, who actually created our new overlay, our Bitcast overlay.
Thanks,
so
Shush.
Thank you, Shush.
Appreciate you.
I'm waiting.
I am going
to drop in your name.
The what?
Nintendo Shush. It's the new console.
The Nintendo Shush.
Sorry. Yeah. The Super Shush.
Yeah.
The Shush you.
Shush you. It sounds like somebody's telling you to be quiet.
Yeah, exactly. No doubt. All right. Well, I guess we'll see what happens. When is the Game Awards? It's usually like first week, December 9th, something like that.
Yeah, it's like early December.
First week of December or last week of November. I think it'll be December.
Yeah, no, it's definitely December. It'll be early December.
Yeah, someone asked me if I was going to go. I was like, no. Like, I don't have any. I don't know why I would fly out for that. Like, that seems odd to me. Like, game shows where you're there for a day or two, or an event where you're seeing a game, but just to sit in the audience to watch that show and then go home, like, no. Nah,
well, because it is one of the things that I talk about here. I did see that Exodus, the game that I am looking forward to as potentially the film Mass Effect, did say that they're going to have a big news drop in December. Usually that means Game Awards.
Yeah.
So that would be exciting.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I live close enough to it. I would go. It's
I mean, for you, yeah.
But I don't think I have a good enough reason to be in the room. You're actually more valuable at the Game Awards if you are remote, like with a laptop typing up stories or whatever.
Yep. Yeah. Sadly, that's true of a lot of those shows. I mean,
being in the room is like the least useful role.
Yes. Yeah. The funny thing is, when it was last year, 2023, when I went to the press media event, not the showcase, but the separate press media event for Xbox in their summer thing. Keeley was like right behind us, and he was on his laptop just typing the whole time. That's what a lot of people do in those. You're just taking down the information and recording it. So, what was I going to say? Do you think this is a completely random question? I was talking to someone about Resident Evil this morning. Resident Evil 9 is apparently kind of nearing its debut. I think we could see Resident Evil 9 debut at Game Awards teaser.
I don't see why not. They do teasers with
Roman numeral 9 into their title.
It'll be something with a G, and the G will be a 9.
Oh, really? I'm thinking Roman numeral will be like IX, and it'll have like it'll have some, I can't think on the spot of something with that.
I don't know.
Maybe, they just call it Resident Evil 6, but the I and the X are highlighted as 9 just to confuse everybody.
Well, I'm excited about this one, not because I'm always excited about the new mainline Resident Evils, but also like Ethan's story from 7 and 8 is done. They finished that in the expansion.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
but they also did set up a possible successor character.
Yes, they did. Yeah. So it's gonna be real interesting to see what they do.
I want no continuations from Village. If I have any votes at all, Capcom.
Oh, stop it!
I don't think you get any votes, dude.
I can't imagine anybody is emotionally attached to the characters in Village. So
I think there are a lot of people.
Characters? I don't know about characters, but Village was good. Come on. I like
the guy who keeps losing his arms and hands. I like the cut of his
Ethan.
That is literally Ethan. Your character, the main character, ostensibly of Village.
Yeah. Well, I think
they explain why. Come on.
They do explain why, in the same way that Resident Evil ever explains anything.
Yeah, that's pretty fair for sure.
Yeah, you guys remember when a guy turned into a giant zombie fish? That was cool. Good times. We're all
Will Resident Evil 9 have a subtitle like Village?
Yes.
Instead of 9?
Well, it's going to be 9, but you know what I mean. Will it be 9?
It'll be
why not? I mean, 7 did.
Yeah, 7 was kind of weird because the subtitle was Biohazard, right? Which is just the name of the game in Japan, right? So very strange.
That was nifty.
It'll be like
Nifty's one. Yeah.
Resident Evil Disease X, and it'll put the I and the X together, and it'll be like 9. And
you're trying too hard there.
Everybody will be like, sick, good job, Capcom. Did it. You really pulled it off. How long did your marketing team sit on that? I bet you chat GTP. Come up with a Resident Evil game that's subtitle incorporates an I and an X in it. Dude, watch this. I'm about to pull it up right now.
All right, you do that while I start rolling us down here.
Have fun. I would rather see a Code Veronica remake than 9, I think. But
no, both.
I think 9 would be fine.
You and I are on the same page with Code Veronica. That's the remake I'm really hoping is next. It needs to be. That game is underappreciated in the Resident Evil verse, I would say.
Code Veronica is great, and it could use with some smoothing out. Like
Sure
remake could really help it.
I had totally forgotten, not to completely get us off track here, but Code Veronica, because obviously I was a Dreamcast guy. That game was one of the biggest releases on Dreamcast, but completely forgot that Dreamcast didn't have 2 thumbsticks until recently, right? It only had the 1 thumbstick. And I'm like, how were we playing Resident Evil games back in the day, or like any of those games? Honestly, it's just crazy to think about
carefully.
Now. Yeah. This week we get Stalker 2, boys. Very excited about this. I read you may like this, you may hate this, take it as you will. The game world is supposedly gigantic in this game. They said that Skyrim, just for reference, we always have to reference Skyrim for every open world game till the end of time, apparently. But Skyrim's open world is 36 square kilometers. Stalker 2's is 60. So it's nearly double the size of Skyrim's open world in Stalker 2. And the previews that the people I've talked to have said it is a huge game. So pretty pumped about it. I don't know about you guys.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to Stalker, although it is a franchise that, generally speaking, depresses me to be in. It's a sad place to be.
It is a dark, yeah, I get you. Yeah. It's going to be, yeah, I guess we'll see how that one shakes out. I haven't even played a lot of Stalker in the past. I've played them, but not to completion. So, but this one just really intrigues me, the look of it. And it feels like a game I could really get into. You're talking about first person shooter, open world, explore, go find crazy shit. That's my world. I live there. Okay. So yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What you got?
Chat GTP is having a hard time with this. But the one that he came up with is Resident Evil Exile. And he put like the I and the X together, Resident Evil. We'll see.
With Capcom, that's not completely unfounded.
But my point is, if I could train this model like a little bit more, like maybe it would take like 5 more minutes, I probably could get like 15 different options for you. So there you go.
I don't know. I see Dominatrix in the chat. If Resident Evil 9 is called Dominatrix, it's going in a completely different direction.
What chat are you looking at there, Hogue?
Yeah,
I'm looking at ours.
Resident Evil Dominatrix is sick, dude.
Yeah, I'm in. Sold. They got a collector's edition?
Phoenix is a good
What's
one.
in it?
They bring back that vampire lady from Village.
Just shows up at your house for a day. All right, sold. Moving on. Let's go ahead and wrap this bad boy up. I do have a super chat I saved for reasons. So Elus Book, our main editor at Season Gaming, I think I've mentioned here before, he is an author, and his first fantasy novel is actually out. Came out a few weeks ago.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is called Prism, Fallen Relic. Which obviously you can see here, but I'll get the super chat. $5 super chat. He said, Ains, if you're sick, move through the prism of our world and into a good book. Sip tea by the fire and heal up so you don't become a fallen relic. So you can find that on Amazon, Barnes, anywhere you find it. I would hugely appreciate, and everyone at Season Gaming would, if you would check this out, give it a look. If you obviously enjoy reading, it is what he describes as a modern fantasy, meaning it's not wizards, elves, dragons, that type of thing. But he is super dedicated. He is an amazing writer, really. And this is out now. So if you check that out, I would appreciate it.
I think that is awesome. I will absolutely check it out. I also wanted to mention, in terms of books, that Exodus project that I was talking about had a book release. It's almost 1,000 pages that I've been going through because I'm excited about that project.
Wow.
And if that video game can deliver anything remotely as weird as that novel, we're in for a treat in terms of world building and excitement. But I don't know whether the video game can actually be as weird as that. So yes, I am in the market for fantasy and reading, and I will absolutely check this out. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, and check out. I believe he did create. There is social media accounts on Blue Sky and X, I believe, about this as well. So you can find it. There's a YouTube trailer for it, which kind of sets up the story. So yeah, definitely check it out. Rick, you can get a link in our Discord. So anyone who wants direct link to make sure you're looking at the right one, you can't miss it. Prism is huge. Fallen Relic on the cover, and our good friend Ange. Shout out to Ange. Says I read the first 100 pages and it's so good. Fantastic.
Yes.
So, all right. So thank you.
ChatGPT has now been trained slightly better. Has some good suggestions.
What do we got?
Resident Evil Elixir.
Elixir does sound like that.
Has I and X in it right next to each other. You could totally do that one. And then some of the other Fixation. I mean, maybe Matrix. No. Phoenix. Operation Phoenix or something you could do. And then some of these other ones are like just stupid, like Dixie and Index and Transfix.
Picture of a library that says Index.
Some of the other suggestions are just silly, but yeah, there you go.
Resident Evil Dixie. What about
stealing from South of Midnight, dude?
Resident Evil Mr. Fix It. There you go.
Yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
Taking that hard turn. Yeah.
I like Elixir if they're sticking with a village kind of approach. I think that Phoenix has definitely a lot of options.
For sure.
Yeah.
Elixir I could see too.
Shush, I'm not putting that up on the screen, but I appreciate you. Shush, killing me. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap up real quick on the season gaming side. I just, if you would check out Alex's review of Dragon Quest III HD 2D remake, he put a lot of time into that, through some heartache with his PlayStation 5 dying. So I would appreciate you checking that out. But rather quiet right now. Otherwise, we do obviously have a lot of content coming. Outside of
gaming comp their writers when their PlayStations die in the line of duty?
No.
Wow.
We console them through the experience is what we do. Funny, not to completely change the subject, but I bought the Halo Series X. I've had to go back to my launch Series X because my Halo one just crashes all the time.
Really?
Yeah. It just crashed, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, there's got to be something going on. I installed game, tried literally everything, and I'm like, you know what? I wonder if it's just the console. I switched back to my launch one, completely fine.
Here's a suggestion that's worked for me as somebody who's tinkered with Xboxes a lot. Have you tried just doing a factory reset from like a thumb drive?
No, I've literally tried everything.
Way. Really?
Seriously,
it's just cursed. You add Halo to the mix, and it always goes sideways.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Nissa Howard just bought a copy. Thank you, Nissa. Awesome. Love to see it.
Are you also getting referral?
I am not getting anything for this. No, just he's put a lot of time over years into this series. It's going to be, I believe I'm correct in saying, a 5-book series. Yeah. This is the first book, obviously. So
would you read it if you could read?
It's going to take me a few years to get to that level. Yeah, I'm still at about kindergarten or so.
It helps if you send it out.
I don't know. Can Chat GPT help me?
Yeah, maybe. Probably.
Oh boy. But good on this side of the house. So thank you for checking that out. Anyone listening as well. We appreciate it, obviously. And he does as well. So Hogue, I'll jump to you. I know you've been busy this week, my friend. So if you want to shout that out.
Yeah. So speaking of Alex, the aforementioned writer of your Dragon Quest III review, I did a video with him. It's available on his channel right now. It's about an hour and a half long, where we talk about games, Dragon Quest, JRPGs in general. Very exciting. I had a lot of fun with that talk. And Alex is a great interviewer. So check that video out. Highly recommend it. And if you're interested in legal items in the video game space, I talk about the Pal World patent controversy a little bit more in Virtual Legality this week, as Pocket Pair, the team behind Pal World, finally revealed what patents we're even talking about, and I can talk about how those were received online, as well as what people were getting wrong and right with their legal analysis of that particular issue. So check that out. And if you want even more legal content, I also did a video with Colin Moriarty at Last Stand Media in Sacred Symbols Plus that just went live yesterday, that talks about the Pal World issue, talks about the Bethesda walkout strike, and talks about the people suing Ubisoft over the takedown of The Crew. So if any of those sound interesting to you, those are over at Last Stand Media. I think that is paywalled at like the $5 level, but you can check that out. And otherwise, I'll be doing more videos on my channel this week at Hoglod YouTube. So check those out as well.
Excellent. Travis, what you got, my friend?
Yeah, you can check out my preview of South of Midnight on IGN.com or YouTube. And I'm not working on much until my review of Path of Exile 2, which is coming up, but not here yet.
Review buddies on that one again. I love it.
Oh, and you should watch the most recent episode of Podcast Unlocked, IGN's Xbox podcast, where I hang out with Ryan McCaffrey, Stella, and some of the IGN crew.
Yeah, good people.
It's like
Good
Achievement
people.
Unlocked.
That's right.
I didn't realize it was the Xbox podcast. Okay,
It's the Xbox podcast.
Fantastic.
Yeah. They got that, and then they've got ones for each console. Actually, Xbox was the last on my bingo card. I've now been on that show twice, so now I've been on all the IGN shows.
I've been on none of them.
I think this is correct, but Beyond, which is the PlayStation show, is actually started by Colin.
Correct.
And what is how does Beyond relate to PlayStation?
It is. That's a good question. There is some origin story.
There is a history there, but I don't remember.
I think it was one of their marketing pushes. Beyond whatever.
Oh yeah, the old live action commercials.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think they had a commercial or a marketing thing about that. Yeah, I was on that show last year, 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Liza P. I'm on the Liza P. episode of Beyond. Check that one. So, good times.
We got a late super sticker from Console Peasant, always a supporter of the show. Thank you. With just a sticker saying we're number one with a Shiba Inu, maybe, and a
tell us what the
paintbrush.
sticker looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, Shiba Inu painting on that we are number one. So we are the number one gaming podcast in the world for Shiba Inus. It's true. It is true.
Happy to be part of being the number one broadcast to any demographic.
That's right. Yeah.
So thank you, Console Peasant. Appreciate that. And just a quick shout out from a social media front too. Bunch of I'll just shout out that myself and Season Gaming are now on Blue Sky. There's been a lot of the gaming community, the social media gaming community, moving over to Blue Sky. So you can find me and Season Gaming over there. A lot of additions lately. So just hit me up on there and I'll be happy to add you back if you're someone that we had engaged with previously. So just trying to keep up over there at the moment. But I'd appreciate that. That's where we're going to primarily be posting for SG and myself in the future.
Nice.
So, yep.
And I'm still on Twitter. So if you see him bad mouthing me over on Blue Sky, you let me know. All right. Thanks.
We'll get him over. Tell Hogue to get on Blue Sky with the rest of us. Come on.
I'm on all of them, and so far I've been posting to all of them, and it is exhausting. But I'm gonna keep it up. I'm gonna see how long I can do that.
I do that for SG.
Yeah.
Didn't they used to have like overarching programs that you could just tell where
you could,
and then you could send it to all the platforms?
But it's a little harder to do now because of API limitations that Twitter imposed, and there's just a bunch of like barriers to it now.
And so. Twitter started what do you call it? Deprioritizing those posts too. So they've done a lot of shady stuff in the background, which is again why I'm moving. So all right. On that note, we will go ahead and close it out. Chat, you've been awesome today. Thank you so much. As always, appreciate everyone tuning in. Fantastic week for games. Looking forward to Stalker. Get back to some of the other games we talked about. And we will see you next Sunday, of course, where I will be able to talk about the trip I took. Looking forward to it. We'll see you then.
And go Lions.